Shalom and welcome to Israeli Salad. We're celebrating Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day. Don't go anywhere, we'll be starting in 22 seconds. Shalom. Now we'll first begin with a happy birthday to the State of Israel. The State of Israel is now 56 years old. We're starting our program near the Independence Hall, where it all started. Let's go in.
At the Independence Hall in southern Tel Aviv, I met tour guide Itzik Dror, who told me the story of this modest hall where the State of Israel was declared. The Independence Hall is located in the home of Mayor Dizengoff, the founder of Tel Aviv. Although the natural place to declare the state should have been in Jerusalem, the capital of Israel, that option was not possible.
You have to understand, Israel was born through agony. The country was in a state of war. Few weeks after the beginning of that war, Jerusalem was already under siege. So you see, it was impossible to go there and to declare independence. The roads to Jerusalem were blocked. A tiny Jewish government was sitting in Tel Aviv.
But even in Tel Aviv, things were far from peaceful.
The day Israel was declared was the day that the British rule came to an end. 6 Arab armies were ready to invade Israel the minute the British rule will come to an end. So it was clear that Tel Aviv will be under air raid that day. And they chose this hall. You can see around you where we are. It is if you are in a shelter, in a bomb shelter. Israel was born in a shelter.
The whole ceremony was organized quickly and secretly. Even the chairs that the founders of the state sat on were gathered in haste from nearby stores.
They had no time, nor the budget for a big and expensive ceremony. This stage, it was built by 2 volunteers who came here 48 hours before the ceremony. These carpets, these are the real carpets, were borrowed as well from a tiny shop around the corner here. The microphones were borrowed as well. If you can see, there is a description here. Tzlil was the name of the tiny electronic shop who gave this equipment for the use of the ceremony. And this is how David Ben-Gurion declared the establishment of the Third Temple, if you like, and in the same time did advertisement to a tiny shop around the corner called Tzlil. Thanks God they didn't borrow something from the Coca-Cola company. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the signs? The State of Israel is born through the sponsorship of the Coca-Cola company.
Although it was probably the most meaningful Independence Day, the first Yom Ha'atzmaut didn't have many celebrations.
And the Egyptians were blitzed Tel Aviv that night. So there was no time for celebrations. People did not rejoice in the streets. It was really one of the most dangerous days to our people. Nobody knew how are we going to survive it.
Until a short time before Ben-Gurion and the others signed the declaration, there were some issues that were still being discussed, like the name of the state. Judea, Zion, and the western side of the Jordan River were some of the proposed names. Even the inclusion of God's name in the declaration was controversial, and at the end, it was decided that God would be referred to as the Rock of Israel, a term that could be understood in many ways. But the lasting legacy of this event was Ben-Gurion reading the words that have since been etched in the hearts of the Jewish people. We hereby declare the establishment of a Jewish state in the land of Israel, the State of Israel.
Israel was not established here. A Jewish state was established here, to be known as Israel. So you see, if they would have declared an Israeli state, it would be a state only for us Israelis. If you declare a Jewish state, automatically all the Jews around the world are taking part in this. And suddenly we have an army. What kind of a chutzpah is it? You know, Jewish army? Suddenly the Jews protect themselves. And what happened here was that David Ben-Gurion opened a door that was shut to millions of our people during the years.
Rabbis say that the establishment of the State of Israel is the beginning of the redemption of the people of Israel. So from where it all started, that's all for now. We'll be back in the studio right after this.
If you're far away from Israel but want to closely follow the events there, the #1 site for you is IsraelNationalNews.com. Israel's top news site is IsraelNationalNews.com.
Welcome back. Throughout the past winter, whenever people in Israel wanted to hear some good news in Israel, they looked up north to Lake Kinneret and checked the water level. So now that the winter is behind us, we're joined on the line by Dr. Doron Markel from the Israeli Water Commission. Doron is the manager of the Kinneret department. Shalom, Doron.
Shalom, shalom.
First of all, for those who don't know, how significant is Lake Kinneret to the water supply in Israel?
Well, Israel consumes about 1.8 billion cubic meters a year. And Lake Kinneret produces about a quarter of this amount in an average year. The last 2 years, which were very good years to the lake, we consume more water from the lake than from the aquifers.
So tell me, what's the status of the water level today?
Well, today the status is minus 289 centimeters. That's below sea level, and that's 9 centimeters below what we call the upper red line, which means a full lake. You have to understand that only 2 years ago, the water level of Lake Kinneret, Sea of Galilee, was about 5 meters lower than today.
The rise of the water level also changes the way the Kinneret looks, right?
That's right. That's right. It looks nicer. It's very good for the tourism.
So are we safe with the water supply, or do we need a plan for the future?
We have to gain and produce more water, mainly by desalination. We always, every winter we pray for a good winter, but we know that in Israel, and every 10 years we have at least 1, 2, sometimes 3 very dry years. That's why we have to plan and build desalination plants. The first one is already built, and it will start produce water by the end of this year. But we hope to have another 2 major plants to desalinate the Mediterranean Sea water.
Doron Markel, manager of the Kinneret department in the Israeli Water Commission. Thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Now let's go back to Israel's history. Mark Kaplan visited a school near Haifa where a lesson in Israel's history can literally be found within the walls of the school.
While the Tel Chai school in Haifa was undergoing renovations, 2 hidden weapons compartments were found near the school's dining room.
An electrician who had to run a few electric cables through the wall said that he felt that there was a hollow spot behind this wall. So they opened the wall and found the weapons cache. They found it exactly as it was left from the time of the War of Independence.
Another part of the history of the struggle against the British Empire was revealed. Recently, a museum was established at the Tel Chai Elementary School. The story of this museum connects with the personal story of Shimon Re'em, the manager of the museum.
When I was 8 years old, my father's brother was the Etzel commander in Haifa. He was killed here a month before the establishment of the state. I saw him in his coffin. I was very close with him. I was the oldest grandson, and he was the youngest of my father's brothers. My whole life, I dreamt of doing something to commemorate his name after I retired.
Here in this school, near where the school restaurant used to be, the Haganah built 2 hidden weapon caches. At night, they would come, take the weapons, and carry out different activities organized by the Haganah. The teachers and students of the school didn't even know that there were weapons here.
Shimon Re'em, who used to direct the Tel Chai school, devotes most of his time to the museum. He has one goal.
I feel that I'm continuing my uncle. His death was not in vain. His generation established the state, and we have to pass the legacy on to the next generation in order that the next generation plant more roots in the land, have a vision, and continue to develop the land of Israel.
Most people who drive on the Jerusalem-Tel Aviv highway have become accustomed to seeing the remains of the armored vehicles on the sides of the road. In this period of Yom Ha'atzmaut, Israel's Independence Day, and Israel's Memorial Day, it would be the appropriate time to understand the story behind these vehicles. These old rusted vehicles are the remains of the convoys that played an important role in the battle for control of the Jerusalem corridor during the War of Independence. These burnt-out skeletons of armored vehicles were left as a monument to memorialize the battle for safe passage to Jerusalem. During the battle for the road to Jerusalem, 230 convoys set out to bring supplies to the besieged city. Over 3,100 trucks made their way to Jerusalem, carrying 10,500 tons of supplies. Around 40 trucks were hit by enemy fire and were unable to continue the journey. In the battles on the road to Jerusalem, more than 400 fighters were killed. The armored vehicles symbolize the courage of those who guarded the convoys and who sacrificed their lives to bring supplies to Jerusalem. Gabi Newman brought us these pictures.
You are watching Israel National News TV.
And now, our weekly insight. At every festive Shabbat meal, there are 2 loaves of challah, traditional braided bread, on the table. After the kiddush, the blessing on the wine, the participants of the meal start the meal with the challah. We are now joined by Rabbi David Samson from Jerusalem. Shalom, Rabbi Samson.
Shalom, Yoni.
Why do we have 2 chalot on the table?
Well, the reason why we have 2 is because when the Jewish people were in the desert, they would have manna that would fall every day. Except on Fridays, they would have a double amount. And on Shabbat, they would have none at all. And the man itself was one of the natural phenomena that would proclaim Shabbat, because Shabbat does not have any other natural phenomena that proclaims it, not the sun, the moon, or anything. And the man in the desert would fall 6 days, and on the 7th day it wouldn't fall. And as a result, they would have double manna on Fridays to commemorate the double man that would fall in the desert. So we take 2 chalot as opposed to 1 that would be the normal amount on Shabbat.
The chalot are covered at the beginning while the kiddush is taking place. Why is that?
Well, we cover them also because of the man. The man had a covering of dew both on top and beneath it, and it's a precept not only to cover the chalot on top, but also beneath the chalot. You should have something that the chalot are put on, not straight on the table, just like the manna in the desert had dew not only on top, but also underneath. Another reason that's given is because when you have a blessing on bread and a blessing on wine, the blessing of bread should precede the blessing on wine. However, Friday night, we first take the wine and only then the bread. So the bread won't feel embarrassed. We cover the bread in order to first take the wine and make the blessing on the wine.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Samson.
The Weekly Insight is brought to you in cooperation with Machon Meir, the largest Zionist institute in Israel, bringing people closer to Judaism.
Thank you all for joining us. Join us again for another program next week. The truth is, we'd rather you join us now by coming to visit Israel. So until next time, from all of us at Israel National TV, Shalom.